Welcome to Coffee with Kusari. This time I'm joined by Tim Miller, co-founder and CEO of Kusari.
So first of all, morning. Got my coffee ready for the theme of the of the show.
Tim, I wanted to talk to you today about the new research study we just put out, Application Security in Practice. I thought there were a lot of really interesting takeaways from that. It kind of validated a lot of my assumptions, but I'm wondering what stood out to you.
Some of the biggest things that I took away personally were just how important integrations and workflows are to folks, and whether or not any tool that they want to pick up, no matter how fancy it is, if it doesn't work with what you're doing today, it's effectively a non-starter. And so that came out much more uh, like directly than I think I expected going into this. It was always something that we've been talking about for a long time, but just the clarity and the importance of that was certainly enlightening to me for sure.
Yeah, I thought that made a lot of sense. It's always easier to do something when it's in your existing workflow, right? Like the number of times, like, oh, I should go do this thing, but that has me switching to three different apps and remembering my login for a different thing. Like, it's hard for people to remember to do that, especially when they're under time pressure. Speaking of time pressure, one of the things that also stood out to me is 50% of our respondents wait 2 to 5 days for a security review, and nearly a fifth of respondents wait more than a week. And to me, that just says, wow, security is really in the way of people trying to ship their code. So, what should a reasonable organization take away from that information?
Uh, well, I think that like I agree. I agree and appreciate bringing that one up as well, because that's a particularly frustrating metric when you look at it and really think about it, especially when you start to overlay that with uh, the drastic rise of increased code going through a pipeline like that. Delays at that kind of scale, even though they might seem acceptable right now, are definitely not going to be in the very, very near term. Like you start checking AI coding assistants at your pipeline, and suddenly that thing is just going to have a security review backlog of infinity. So it's just not tolerable. Um, I think the thing to take away from there is like you really have to be baking security into your pipeline and into your workflow, so that the delay is effectively zero, which is not every single review. No, policy reviews and exceptions to things. Sure, you can have a little bit of a lag there, but just the standard, hey, am I good or not good? Shouldn't like a week of that is just not a reasonable delay in at this time, legacy or not, right? It's just you gotta move faster.
Yeah, and I think that, kind of touches on a point that, not just in security, but, the broader industry context. It's been what, at least 15 years since the Phoenix project came out. We know, at least, conceptually, that shipping faster increases security, increases reliability. It's all of that sitting there waiting for these gates to be cleared every so often is actually counterproductive. But still, 40% of the people said they only check their security posture either monthly or at defined release milestones. Um, what gives?
I think it's hard. Again, I think you take a legacy pipeline or a more traditional way of looking at things, and that's probably close-ish to the release cycle. And so, if there's this assumption that big security changes only are going to come with big development changes, the you could squint and kind of see how that kind of logic could have landed where it is. But yeah, that's that. This is just the sort of reason why things like React for Shell or Shai Halud are going to be able to be so sticky, is because if you're waiting that long, it's been compacted. It's like, you know, based on the current weather, the best analogy I have is the snowplow. Like all this other stuff is coming in behind. Every change that's being made is constantly being pushed and pushed and pushed. And now this review that's going to take a month is not looking at one little sliver. It's looking at a whole bunch of stuff. The likelihood of catching things at that frequency is just really very, very low and a very dangerous way to go about it. you really need to be taking an active push to, you know, kind of buzzwords aside, really move that further up in your pipeline. Like it just has to. Start checking a lot of the obvious things where the obvious things come in. And then that monthly review can be more of a, do we have the right policies in place? Are we checking holistically the right things, and use that to check how your whole process is working versus that being the security process? Like I would much rather have people check their security posture on a monthly basis and how they're going about it versus checking their security on a monthly basis. That latter one is very scary. That former one, actually pretty good.
Well, and to that point, and kind of compounding it, 28% of respondents said they were highly aware of their transitive dependencies, and I think we have seen both with our customers, but also in the broader software ecosystem, people just don't know what their dependencies are, and that's where most of the problems come in.
Yeah, I still have a gut reaction that even that number is very off. Like just in the typical dev cycle, this is just not something that anyone even really tends to look at, like ever. And it's historically been dev tooling has been great at not having you care about those problems so that you can move fast and not care about it. It's the right thing to do, right? Is to make a dependency pool something that you don't need to be an expert in every single thing they're using. So the fact that we got here isn't crazy. But yeah, continuing to just let all this stuff come in, and especially when it's really like the intermingling of not one project at a time having several thousand dependencies. It's like most folks have thousands of projects, hundreds to thousands of internal software projects, and then in there is the mess and the detangling that happens. And sometimes folks do silly things like they pull the log4j version two levels deep out of the dependent of the big framework they're using as opposed to the one that's approved. It just gets tricky. And understanding this, I think, is going to really be an important thing going forward, no matter how you do it. Staying on top of that picture is really going to be something that you have to react to. That way, if you can't get that security review, moved from monthly to, let's move it to weekly. Let's move the goal to weekly. If you can't go from monthly to weekly, the amount of stuff that you're going to be catching in there, you have a plan to react to. So that the reactive security posture has been a big problem in that report, that piece. Uh, Not being able to react is really going to be your biggest problem there if you're not able to close the loop tighter. And so you at a minimum to be able to get better transparency is really just the right answer. It's just know what's there, and then you can come up with a plan, and then you can work on and create, make the loop go faster.
So, in the survey, 85% of people said they use AI in some way, whether that's code development, testing, analysis, some form of, probably LLM-driven artificial intelligence. How do you see that changing the software supply chain security landscape in the next year or two?
Uh, Pretty wildly. I think it's going to throw a wrench in most of the tooling, and a lot of these kinds of postures that we were talking about, especially when you get into like legacy apps. Really, I think of the AI tooling as a superpower that every development team has now. Like you could previously do, 100 units of work, you can now do 1 million. Like you can really scale it up to go much quicker. The problem is though that they have shown repeatedly that they're not going to be perfect. They are going to make silly mistakes. A lot of those bad answers that we used to have on Stack Overflow that would introduce a bunch of issues now just get automatically pulled in, and they're helping you move really fast. But you have to build up the pipeline to be able to catch this stuff more responsibly. Uh, just chucking those things out there, reacting, and then fixing them back in the same loop is keeping you open to the problem of those things just lacking context to solve them based on how they're generating the code in the first place. And so, yeah, I think that I see much more investments coming in the pipelines, the software development pipelines. I uh, I I'm really excited to see where the development tools go. I would love to be able to just orchestrate tons of these AI agents to just do the coding bidding, but then having it all come back to a secure pipeline where you can then collect that information, tag it to know where it's gonna go. Make sure you have the proper attestations in place to do your attributions for later on should something have gone funky in that mess. And then yeah, after that, I'm really excited to now see where the LLMs can do really great correlation past that. It's like, hey, we found all these issues. We found that folks using this model tend to generate more security issues than folks using this other model. Folks in pushing out into this ecosystem tend to have these kinds of issues. Like that kind of insight to be able to instantly happen in our pipelines, I'm really super excited about.
Was there anything in the report that caught you by surprise where you didn't expect that kind of answer?
Um, the focus on legacy was not was more than I thought it was going to be. Um, just in terms of where folks see the risks, I expected more of the uh, the AI is going to cause all my problems sort of mentality to come through. This South Park rabble rabble uh, kind of attitude. But no, it was really just, hey, this old stuff is really risky. Is something that came in uh, more more clearly and much more out in front than I would have bet on. So I would have I would have lost the bet on what folks would have thought was the biggest problem to them. So that's a little bit of I think of a back to reality checkpoint for a lot of folks is cool tools are great, but we have all this stuff, and if we can't work on the stuff that we already have, we're in bad shape. So I think that's a good thing for folks to pay attention to. It snaps me back to reality a little bit.
So when you think about Kusari's customers, what are they doing that helps them be more secure compared to the general respondents in this research report?
Yeah, well, so like any good problem, the recognition that there is a problem is step number one, is that we have to get our arms around this, and the realization that the current mechanism of of just emailing spreadsheets back and forth is not a sustainable model. It is a big piece of that puzzle. But the steps that they're taking from there is just immediate visibility and gaining that visibility, and then from there being able to make the decisions on what works best for their environment has been, I think, one of the things that helps folks. Like folks who deal most with like Jupyter notebooks is going to be a different set of priorities than folks who have a more traditional Java year and war kind of style deployments with still monolithic apps. And so like that, but regardless of what your tech stack looks like, I now know what I have, putting the controls in place to keep all this stuff funneled and remove the amount of crap coming in the door has definitely been something that they've been seeing. And then yeah, prepping themselves so that even if they don't have the most reactive security posture in the moment, being able to then react with the best information, and so taking really strong steps in the right direction. It's really just doing the fundamentals. It's a cybersecurity equivalent of do some push-ups, eat the broccoli, and put the chips down. Right? It's basically what they're doing, and it works. Like it really does work.
All right, thanks for joining us, Tim. If you want to read this research report, the link is in the episode description, or you can go to kusari.dev. And until next time, we'll see you on Coffee with Kusari.